Well, we made it into Sunday evening without any rain, so I think we could say that we broke that streak. Although there might be some showers overnight, as the radar's showing a little peppering here and there of some very light shower activity. Severe weather is going on where it's been going on in the plains, and we will take a look at that. We've got severe thunderstorm warnings, severe thunderstorm watches, and tornado watches out the wazoo, as they like to say. And of course, we've got the week ahead in the long range on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast on this Sunday night, the 2nd of June. Brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the description to this podcast. If you purchase this or anything else from the Tempest website, and by the way, this weather station is easily installed and you can run it right off your mobile device. Use the coupon code SPRING2024, which I'm going to change sometime this week. But right now it's SPRING2024. If you do, you will get
10% off, Joe. We just had a cameo appearance by JJ, by the way, behind you.
Oh, really? Oh, well, he's laying down asleep like he usually is. What's the show? I'm trying. It just came to me. What's the show where they had that big dog that would always be sleeping on the,
A
you
big
know,
dog will always be
yeah,
asleep. I mean,
yeah, they
Beverly Hillbillies had Duke.
Georgia, but when it rains on a Sunday, oh God, is it awful. However, thankfully, it was all Perry Mason all day long, something to watch on television. And I did manage to go out for a little while. Finally, this rain stopped about 2 o'clock this afternoon. The sun briefly came out, and temperatures barely made it back to 70 today.
Well, we had a perfect weekend. I mean, right now it's gotten rather heavily overcast, but much of the weekend was sunny skies, no real weather problems, and dry conditions. And we haven't seen too many weekends like this in a good long time. So a lot of people I know enjoyed it and took advantage of it.
As well, they should, because we are going to see some changes coming up for this week. Uh, Pretty active troughing coming into the east after the first half.
Well, I think, well, first of all, we may have a couple of showers around, especially later tonight, of no great concern. It's not going to amount to very much. But then tomorrow, we'll see kind of a blend or mix of sun and clouds. Best day of the lot looks to be Tuesday. Tuesday's going to be bright and sunny. Temperatures will probably be within a degree or two of 80. And then, as you just pointed out, with a upper trough moving toward us, the threat of showers will be on the increase, especially so on Thursday when we may be dealing with not just a few showers, but maybe some scattered thunderstorm activity as well.
I'm in total agreement with you, and we'll see whether some places in the east may wind up getting some severe weather out of that front. We'll see how it behaves. And then it looks like it's going to be on the coolish side in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England for the end of the week and going into the weekend. And, when you're dealing with a cold trough in June that's going to be hanging around in the eastern part of the United States, it's more than likely that there probably will be opportunities for some showery rains at times, I would think, with cold, unstable air aloft.
Right, and sometimes if it gets too unstable with the cool pool of air above, you may even get a little bit of pea-sized hail. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that has been known certainly to happen in this type of situation.
I totally agree. All right, welcome tonight to everybody on the chat board. And for those of you watching in the background, welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. I just want to remind everybody that we have a very interesting show for Tuesday and a very interesting guest, John Molick. He has the podcast Headlines and History. He is a chief intelligence officer for the New York State National Guard, and one of his functions, among many, is the dissemination of weather information to the higher ups. So it'll be interesting. We'll be talking about that. We'll talk about history, foreign affairs, the place of weather in all of this. So that's Tuesday night's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast which of course will be at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. The one other thing I just want to mention too is that I was able uh, to well substantially reduce the number of ads that will run during the show. That was something that YouTube was doing. I had no control over it, but I was able to find a way to um, minimize those. So hopefully you will have a better experience. You know, we got to eat too, so those ads are important, but I don't want discomfort. You know, you shouldn't have ads coming up every 5 seconds. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So I've taken care of that. All right, so hopefully everything will go smoothly tonight. In the meantime, those of you who are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and don't miss us. As I said, we're on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Like the show, hit the like button, and make sure you got the notifications on so you do not miss us. And mark your calendar down for Tuesday. So it's we're into June. So the next 3 months are they are the three warmest months of the year, and uh, we'll see what that means going forward. But right now, it's still about severe weather, and we are seeing fairly widespread severe thunderstorm watches tonight in North Dakota, in South Dakota, in Nebraska, in Kansas, and eastern Colorado, and then for the western part of the Oklahoma Panhandle and down into northwest Texas, it turns into a tornado watch. We've got severe thunderstorm watches up in north central Texas, which includes the Dallas Fort Worth area, and there are some severe thunderstorm and flash flood warnings there. Also in southwest Texas and for a few counties in southeast Texas, we have severe thunderstorm watches up. In the southwest is where the heat is. We have an excessive heat watch,
Uh-oh.
an, an excessive heat watch in uh, southern Arizona, not all of it. The southwest part is not in an excessive heat watch, but the rest of it is the southern half. And then some of the northwest counties, and then going into Nevada, and then going into Southern California. And of course, as we all know, an excessive heat watch means that we will have heat, and it could be excessive. Uh, and then, of course, we've got flood watches up for parts of Idaho, along with wind advisories, flood watches up for western Washington, which includes Seattle, and getting some rainy weather up in the northwest. But for the most part in the east, it's quiet. And just looking at the satellite, this trough that's to our west is very unimpressive, very uninspiring. Probably because if you look to the northeast, south of Nova Scotia, there's some kind of rotation there with a non-tropical system that is offshore. And I think, Joe, that's what it's doing is, uh, aside from creating subsidence along the eastern seaboard, particularly offshore, there's not really much room for this. This trough can't amplify. There's no room. So instead, it's just sort of falling apart.
And the thing about the precipitation over the next several days, well, again, just a spot shower tonight, dry tomorrow, dry on Tuesday. And again, if we get to the latter part of the week, we will begin to see the threat increase for showers and scattered thunderstorms. But I must say that, Joe, in agreement with you, whatever we do get later on in the week does not look to be very steady or particularly heavy, but around. And any kind of shower that you do get is more of an annoyance, especially coming off of a beautiful weekend like this. The last thing you want to look to later on in the week or even next weekend is a chance or the possibility of showers. But unfortunately, because of the slow movement and the fact that we do have a trough in our vicinity, we're going to have to look for that as the possibility again for later on in the week.
Executive producer Reuben Fairchild, Joe. He was formerly known as Prime Minister Reuben Fairchild, but now he's executive producer Reuben Fairchild. I don't remember his. He wants to know when did they go from 5 days, 5 days in a row of 90 plus to define a heat wave to 3 days in a row of 90 plus. I honestly don't remember. It's been a while. they went to this 3 day thing.
It seems to me that they do this kind of stuff, they being NOAA or the National Weather Service, to make it easier. You may remember that with blizzards, you had to have a temperature at or below an ambient air temperature of 20 degrees. Now they've pretty well gotten rid of the temperature requirement. So as long as you have heavy snow and gusty winds and visibility below 3 miles um, for a stretch, you got a blizzard. But again, back in the day, you also needed to conform with temperature. And with the heat wave analysis, again, you're right. It used to be 5 days, now it's three. I guess maybe to make it easier or
Maybe.
become more frequent that you can hear about a heat wave.
Yeah, I remember there was a time where they were using 88 as the magic number, 88 degrees or higher. That didn't last very long. I also think, I also think that in blizzard, just like the word mild means exactly the opposite of the way it's used. Uh, when it's cold and temperatures warm up, people say it's going to be milder. And the definition of mild, if you look it up in the dictionary, is actually the reverse. That's when it's very hot, and then you get a day that's not so hot. That's considered milder. So it's sort of the meanings in people's minds have changed over the years, especially in the Northeast, where 20-inch plus blizzards in the coastal plain became so common in the 2000 to 2020 period. Uh, that's what most people would say if there was more than you got more than a foot on the ground, they'd say, "Oh, it's a blizzard," even if the other criteria wasn't necessarily met.
It's again, it's a change in definitions over the years, and yeah, maybe it's because they want to make it easier for the news media to get headlines. You
Well,
know,
they would make headlines out of it no matter what. They'd find a way.
true.
Yeah. We could see a lot of lightning strikes going on in north central Texas at the moment. Also, a lot of lightning strikes up further north in Nebraska and through the Dakotas as those storms are moving eastward. We've got some scattered lightning strikes tonight in parts of Alabama, and there's one dying cell to the southeast of me that is moving away, well southeast of me, and moving even further to the southeast. A lot of clouds in the in the eastern Bahamas, down to the Dominican Republic. Some disorganized showers and even some scattered thunderstorms in here, but there's no organized convection. But I think it's probably wise since hurricane season started yesterday, and being that it's a La Nina year, that we, um, maybe keep a slightly extra eye on things that are around this month in the tropics and subtropics. Because I got a sense that there will probably before the month is out, we're going to get a named tropical system on the Atlantic side.
Well, at least we didn't do it in May. We had so many in the last 10 years, so many days or so many situations where our first tropical cyclone formed in May. We didn't have it happen this year, but June 1st, the beginning of the season, and so we'll start watching even more carefully for development of some kind of a tropical system in the days and weeks to come.
As Joe pointed out, there are some spotty showers on the radar. I don't know how much of this is actually reaching the ground. I didn't really see anybody reporting any showers, but the radar is showing some spots in South Jersey, Southeast PA, also in the Hudson Valley, and even a couple of specks in North Jersey to about New York City. Uh, it is reaching the ground though in upstate New York, in and around Syracuse. There looks like there's a little patch of thunderstorm activity going on there, moving to the east along I-90, and then there's some showers north of I-90 and north of the Albany area in northern New York and extending down into northwest Massachusetts. Some scattered showers down in parts of Delaware and Maryland, in Virginia. Got a little patch there in northwestern Virginia, also in western North Carolina and northwestern South Carolina, seeing some spotty showers there. A few thunderstorms scattered around in parts of Alabama and also in South Florida. Meanwhile, here's the mess tonight. And it looks like Dallas Fort Worth at the moment under a flash flood warning, and as are some of the surrounding counties. We also have several severe thunderstorm warnings that are in play. And you can see there's also a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings in southwest Texas and in northwest Texas, right over Amarillo. We've got a bunch of showers and thunderstorms and some severe thunderstorm warnings. One, two, three, four, five. Looks like between five and six severe thunderstorm warnings there. One in southwest Kansas, another bunch in west central Nebraska and the eastern Colorado, and a couple of there's a tornado warning up here in parts of over eastern South Dakota. Let's see where that is exactly. Let me take a look on Tornado HQ. And we have a tornado warning for Clark and Hamlin County in South Dakota. And that is it was issued 12 minutes ago. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing tornado was over Collins County, 10 miles west of Bryant, moving east at 15. There was another tornado warning. I think they may have taken it down because I don't see it on my map here. That was issued 21 minutes ago in Pecos and Terrell, Texas counties. A severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was 16 miles northwest of Sanderson, moving southeast at 15. So those are the two tornado warnings that are up at the moment. And there was another one in Brown County in South Dakota that's going to it says expire 6 minutes from now, but they may have already taken that one down. So anyway, if you're watching this later on tonight on the replay, always remember that the radars and satellites and when we speak of current weather going on while we're live on the air, obviously it's going to be dated when you watch it. So check weather.gov for the latest on severe weather that could be happening in your neck of the woods. And a lot of heavy rain up in the northwest, across Washington State, with sort of a gaping hole in the middle, and in western Oregon. So there's rain coming in uh, off um, off the ocean and off the Pacific Ocean. So there you have it on the radar. Uh, Busy here, Mr. Rayo, on the severe thunderstorm and tornado watches up and down the plains from southwest Texas all the way up into North Dakota. I mean, it's like almost a straight line.
And just want to mention here on the chat board that a new name, at least to me, Dashaw Stallings. Have you seen that name before, Joe?
No, and welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast.
And he says, do you think history is going to repeat itself with the hurricane track like what happened in 2004 and 2005? Now, 2005, we actually had to go to the Greek alphabet because we used up all of the regular names, I believe. I don't remember what happened in 2004, but the way the various weather sources, NOAA, the National Hurricane Center, Colorado State University, they're all saying that this is going to be an abnormally high year in terms of activity, 18 to 25 named storms, at least, along with the fact that we have a La Nina and the very warm waters of the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Atlantic Basin, could lead to abnormal numbers of tropical cyclones. So maybe, I'm not saying it's something definitive, but maybe, Dashon, we may just have a year similar to at least to 2005, but that is yet to be seen.
Well, I actually just pulled up from the Hurricane Center. I went into the archives and pulled up make this a little bit bigger. 2003, we had a landfalling hurricane in North Carolina, and that would be Isabel, I believe. A major hurricane. There were three major hurricanes that year, 16 total storms. One, two, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven were hurricanes. The rest were tropical storms. That included Major Hurricane Fabian, Major Hurricane Isabel, and Major Hurricane Kate. So you could see where most of the storms were offshore, but there was, the one Atlantic landfall. Then you had a landfall across Florida that came in from the west. That was Tropical Storm Henri. And then we have number five, which was Erica as a tropical storm that moved pretty much west across the Gulf and went in south of Brownsville. And then we had one, two, three in the Gulf of Mexico. One, yeah, it looks like three landfalls along the Gulf Coast. So that's 2003. So let's see what 2005 was. And
I think 2005 was the year we went right through the regular number of names, and we had to go to the Greek alphabet, if I'm correct.
yes, we went to, oh, this was 2005 was, you know, one of those crazy years. We had, that was the year of Katrina. So we had major hurricanes Dennis, Emily, Katrina, Maria, and not that's the first Maria. The second Maria that was it 2018? I think that was retired. And then we had Nate, Ophelia, Felipe were all hurricanes. Rita was a major hurricane in the category five, also retired. Stan. Um, then there was a subtropical storm that was added. Tammy, Vince, major hurricane Wilma, of course, into Florida.
That's
And
the one
then,
that that's the one that knocked Al Roker down.
right. And then you had Alpha, major hurricane Beta, tropical storm Gamma, subtropical storm Delta, hurricane Epsilon, and tropical storm Zeta. So that was a very busy map. Although when you look at the East Coast, there was there were no. I'm just trying to follow this track along because they're all laying on top of each other, so it's hard to see. I don't know which storm it was. There was one that recurved right off the coast of North Carolina, past just southeast of Hatteras, and then went out to 40 and 70, and then out to sea from there. But you can see all the landfalls on the Gulf Coast, and of course Katrina, which first came in into Florida and then went southwestward into the Gulf, and then looped around and turned west and northwest and then northward, going into southeast Louisiana and tracking just east of New Orleans. So yeah, it's a busy year. Uh, judging from the fact that of what's been talked about with the La Nina and everything else, and the record warm water temperatures, yeah, all of that seems to indicate that we're going to go in this type of direction in terms of the number of storms. But there's no way to know for sure. Um, and as far as landfalls are concerned, I'll repeat, it wasn't something that Levi Cowan said on that video of his. If you haven't seen it, go to Tropical Tidbits about the hurricane season. It's a very good video, a lot of useful information on it. Um, about the meteorology behind all of this. But the overall broad view for the season is for an active one. But as far as where, if, how many landfalls are going to be, or if there are going to be many landfalls or not, and where those landfalls are going to be, the long range guidance simply is not there yet. Okay. And at the end of the day, it's really going to be dependent on what the weather pattern is like uh, during the week to 10 days that a tropical system is in play. So, that's all you could really say at this point about all of this.
And I said, I think a week or two ago, you could have a year which has plentiful tropical cyclone activity, a lot of named storms, a lot of activity going on out in the Atlantic Basin and the Caribbean, but still you don't see very much in the way of any of those making landfall in the United States. On the other hand, you could have a below normal year, and you may end up with just one singular storm. Andrew in 1992 is a good case in point there. Andrew was one of the worst storms ever experienced here in the United States. That was, I think, was a below normal hurricane year overall in terms of numbers, but yet a terrible year because there was loss of life and also a tremendous amount of damage, monetary damage. I think was in the billions of dollars because of Andrew hitting Florida. So again, it can go either way. You could have a lot of storms out there, but none of them seem to be attracted or seem to make landfall in the United States. And yet you don't have very many storms, and all you need is one. All you need is one storm to uh, become problematic or even historic. So we'll see how this year of 2024 goes. Again, very warm ocean waters, La Nina, that again leads to what I believe has been the highest number of storms predicted compared to any other year, 18 to 25. And we'll see how that all pans out in the end.
David Schwartz hit super chat. Thank you, David, pointing out that the activity, severe weather activity, 5 active tornado warnings as of 7:56 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 in South Dakota, 1 in Minnesota, and 1 in Texas. And I just looked at Tornado HQ. 29 severe thunderstorm warnings up at the moment. 4 tornado warnings. So maybe one of those tornado warnings expired, or just they just let it disappear. Um, the breakdown of the warnings: 1 in Colorado. These are severe thunderstorm or tornado warnings put together. 1 in Colorado, 2 in Kansas, 3 in Minnesota, 6 in North Dakota, 4 in Nebraska, 1 in Oklahoma, 6 in South Dakota, and 13 ongoing severe thunderstorm warnings up in Texas. And Texas is a big state, so on a day like this, you would expect that they would have a higher number. SPC tonight, of course, you see the enhanced risk in Nebraska, northern Kansas, slight risk that goes from southwest Texas all the way up into North Dakota with marginal risk on either side. The blue boxes are all severe thunderstorm watches as of 8:05 p.m. Eastern Time. And we've got 1 tornado watch up for northwest Texas. Some thunderstorms are just starting to appear there now. In the east, we've got some general thunderstorms being indicated in the parts of the Ohio Valley and away from the coast in Virginia, North and South Carolina, and Georgia. Most of that's probably played out already. But we do have some cells down into Alabama, also in South Florida, and in the Northwest, it's just plain, a cold rain, and that's that. So, as far as tomorrow is concerned, SPC has a slight risk in northeast Texas, exactly where they don't need it, southeast Oklahoma, southwest Arkansas, northwest Louisiana, and that comes with a rather large 2% tornado risk. Also, a 2% tornado risk being indicated for much of southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois, including the cities of Chicago and Milwaukee. And you see the marginal risk goes all the way up into Wisconsin and through Illinois, even into northwest Indiana. On day 3, and this now takes us to Tuesday into Wednesday, for now, what we have is a marginal risk, and this is through Wednesday morning. Marginal risk in eastern Minnesota, western Wisconsin, much of Iowa, northwest Missouri, northeast Kansas, and eastern Nebraska. And as far as rainfall is concerned, and this takes us to next Sunday night, half to 3/4 of an inch, with some 1.5 inch pockets in upstate New York and into northern New Hampshire and Maine. Then the amounts diminish some as you go down to the southeast. It's more like 1/10 to 1/4, and picks up again in South Florida, especially southernmost Florida, 1.5 inch plus. And through the lower Ohio Valley into the Tennessee Valley, we've got 1 inch to some areas as you go further west in the middle Mississippi and Missouri River, lower Missouri River Valley. We're looking at areas of 3 inches plus, and that amounts of up to 1 inch to 1.5 inches all the way up into Minnesota. And actually, we mentioned this last week. There's a fair amount of rain that's been falling across south central Canada and going northwest from there. So that's really good news. If there's any kind of fire, that we don't have a repeat of last year as far as the smoke is concerned. And you know what? We were getting into that smoke in the month of June last year, if I remember correctly,
Right.
and no sign of it so far. At the moment, no sign of it.
Yeah, we did have something about a week or 10 days ago. I think I made a mention that there was some activity up in Western Canada, and
Wisconsin
Wisconsin and Minnesota was in the midst of it. They were issuing air quality advisories, and but ever since then we haven't really seen all that much. So yeah, maybe it's good that they are getting the wet out in the western part of Canada to help tamp down any kind of any type of fire activity.
And up to several inches of rain possible in the mountains in the Pacific Northwest, as well as along the coast, and also up in the northern Rockies, anywhere from an inch of liquid to as much as 2 to 2.5 inches in some places. So you can see the cold trough that's out in the west. We are in a ridge position, or about to get into a ridge position. This weak little short wave, and you can barely pick it out, but it's right in here. This is the dying trough that's moving out. You've got all this energy that's coming in off the Pacific into the northwestern part of the U.S. as well as into southwestern Canada, and it goes straight east from there. So that is supportive of rain in that region. We're going to get rid of the trough, pop up a little ridge here in the east over the next couple of days. And then this upper low that comes into the northwest Monday morning shoots pretty quickly eastward toward Lake Winnipeg, and then it dives southeastward into the eastern part of the United States. It's got a broad cutoff that eventually winds up in upstate New York and New England. By the time we get to next weekend, this is this is not conducive to nice weather. I mean, sunrise to sunset nice weather. This is more conducive to a very cold and unstable atmosphere aloft. So we'll have a front that'll go by at some point, maybe Wednesday night or on Thursday. And then we're going to have to deal with this upper low. It's going to be for cooler than normal temperatures in the Northeast, into the mid Atlantic states, and maybe even into the little bit further south into the mid Atlantic states. And also, that there's probably going to be some, self-destruct sunshine with some pop-up showers and maybe some thunderstorms that are going to probably develop in this. And then as that first trough goes out, Joe, another cutoff forms right behind it in eastern Michigan and swings overhead early next week before that pulls out. And then here comes another trough diving into the eastern part of the United States by the end of, now we're talking the week of June, starting Monday, June 10th. So at the end of that week, there's yet another trough that dives southeastward. There's also something that comes out of the Caribbean that the GFS is spinning up and bringing up the coast. So that's exciting. But for June, this is a pretty dynamic pattern. And it's interesting that we're seeing these troughs coming into the eastern part of the United States because, that could be problematic once the hurricane, once we get it deep enough into hurricane season. If we're still dealing with troughing somewhere in the eastern part of the United States, that could be an issue.
Exactly, that could serve to help to bring up activity from the tropics. Although I did mention, I think on Thursday, that at Weather Trends 360, Bill Kirk, who does his own share of tropical cyclone or hurricane projections, is suggesting that this summer, the best chances for that type of activity to occur would be in the Gulf coastal area, the Gulf coastal states, and also Nova Scotia. He has the highest risk for activity along the Atlantic seaboard up near Nova Scotia. And if you think about it, as we mentioned this before, Nova Scotia and Newfoundland have been kind of in the crosshairs in terms of hurricane or tropical storm activity for the past few summers. So maybe this is going to be another one of those years for them. So we'll see. We'll see how that happens. The Climate Prediction Center, by the way, Joe, has much of the Midwest into the Northeast.
Would you like to show it?
Below normal. Yeah, sure. Well, you could do it if.
Yeah, here we go. Hang on.
Shares.
I'm always here to accommodate you. There you go. It's all yours.
Okay, so we'll show you first the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. This is actually is rather impressive, I think, considering that it is for June 8th through June the 12th. And let me just see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this area that you see, this zone here, which encompasses what? A good chunk of Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, a small stripe of northern Tennessee. This zone right here for the 8th to the 12th of June is projected to be at 60 to 70% probability for below normal temperatures. And that's pretty good. You don't see that very often in the rather warm month of June, one of the three warmest months of the year. We here in the Northeast just just barely get into that below normal trend. And actually, up in Maine, they are calling for, believe it or not, a tilt toward above normal temperatures. So it's not so much here in the Northeast, but out in the nation's midsection, below normal probabilities are high for below normal temperatures. Now, if we go to the 8 to 14 day projection, you see that still basically it's the same thing. When you go further out, you're not quite as confident as, let's say, you are, closer in. But still, this shows that below normal temperatures are expected to continue at least up until the 16th of June throughout much of the Midwest, down into the Mississippi River Valley, and into a part of the Northeast as well. As far as precipitation is concerned, you've got these cooler temperatures. And look at this, Joe, in the Northeast. It got near normal in the zone where the coolest temperatures are projected, below normal up here in the northern plains and western Great Lakes. But the Northeast is projected to be above normal precipitation
Well,
wise.
it kind of makes sense if you look where the trough is. If they got the major below normals in the Ohio and Tennessee Valley, so your trough is somewhere around 85, between 85 and 90. So, yeah, it would probably mean that for the northern mid-Atlantic up to Maine, it would be a wet period.
For 8th to 12th and for June 10th to 16th, the same story. In fact, if anything, they actually enlarge that area of above normal probability for precipitation, making it go almost all the way down the Atlantic coast into Florida. So, yeah, it may be a spell of near or even cooler than normal temperatures as we move into the second week of June, but it also seems to suggest that we'll be seeing more often than not above normal chances for showery weather, for showery precipitation. So we'll see.
Deshaun Stallings bangs super chat again. Thank you, Deshaun. He says, so you think the troughing that creates an issue can create another Hurricane Sandy? Okay, no, I don't think that. So let me just make this clear, okay? Because you're sort of jumping to the apocalyptic conclusion here. That it doesn't, and it's not necessarily the case. Sandy was a once in a multi-generational type event. Okay. When you look at how it evolved and how everything, came together, the unusual upper air setup that we had with that. So there's that. On the other hand, I will just say that, if there's going to be troughing in the eastern part of the United States, it does become problematic if you get a tropical storm to form in the wrong place at the wrong time. You could have all the troughing in the east that you want. If there are no tropical systems around, then it really doesn't matter. And as I said also earlier, it all depends on what the weather pattern is in that 10-day time frame when you have a tropical system around. So you have to kind of wait. So I guess the approach really should be you have to wait for the tropical system to form and then you worry about what the upper air looks like and not the other way around. Okay. So
Jason,
I
Jason,
hope that makes it clear.
Jason Fox is absolutely correct. You need a high near Newfoundland to get another Sandy. And what was it? The NAO was
It was very negative.
abnormally negative, and we had a
Yes.
big ridge of high pressure both in the at the surface and in the upper level of the atmosphere. So when Sandy was coming up, it ran right into that big blocking high. And the high was saying, "No, you can't come this way." So Sandy said, "Okay, if I can't go north, I'll just make a sharp left turn and head for the Jersey coast." And
And there was
again,
a really wrapped up upper low that was in the lower Ohio and Tennessee Valley, and usually wrapped up upper low that was able, that's kind of where it sort of steered around that. So it was a very, very odd. It was a setup that's the only time in our careers that we ever really have seen something like that. So you're talking almost, you're talking 45 plus years and for something that's only happened once of that magnitude.
yeah,
There have
I
been, so that's why you have to be kind of careful here to
I
automatically jump to the apocalypse.
I spoke with, I did a report for News 12 back in 2012 and spoke with Jeff Tung, who was at the time the science advisor at the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Upton, Eastern Long Island. And in that report, he said, we may go 50, maybe even 100 years before we see another setup like Sandy. He said, of course, he had the comment, we know that it can happen, obviously, because it did happen with Sandy. But as to when we're going to see another situation like that again, it may be many, many, many years before that happens again.
And should we have to wait that long, we will certainly cover it here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is on a Sunday through Thursdays at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time, even if it is 50 years from now. We might be a little bit dusty. Okay. Hopefully nobody will turn a fan on in the room because, our our crumbs will go just fly through the air at that point. And Jason Barry is right. The GFS will spin up the obligatory tropical storm system pretty much on a weekly, if not daily basis. But here's what it looks like. Now, of course, you see the severe weather going on tonight in the Dakotas, and also in Texas and in Oklahoma during overnight. Kind of a nasty overnight period coming up in Minnesota and Nebraska down into Oklahoma and Texas, and the showers in the east just basically fall apart. There might be some scattered showers around well inland tomorrow in western Pennsylvania and western New York. Tuesday looks okay. The flow's a little bit onshore-ish, so the temperatures won't be getting out of hand. And then, of course, you've got the next weather front as we move to Tuesday night and Wednesday. And it looks like maybe some severe weather moving through Wisconsin and Iowa Tuesday night. And then, of course, Wednesday, it appears that we might have some showers and storms getting close Wednesday evening into Wednesday night, early Thursday. And then after that, it's really about the upper low and in the upper troughs just sort of spinning around. If you run the GFS starting from Thursday and going through Friday, there's not much around in the morning in terms of precip, and then suddenly in the afternoon, you've got all this measurable precip showing up north and west of the coast. So it's we're gonna probably have to include that in the forecast. The same goes for Saturday, and the same goes probably for next Sunday. As long as there's troughing in the east like this, it means cooler than normal temperatures, cooler aloft. And then, of course, if you notice on the lower part of the screen, between Cuba and the Dominican, I'm sorry, between Cuba and the Yucatan Peninsula, something comes out of the Northwest Caribbean, shoots up the west coast of Florida, and then, kind of deepens into a strong tropical storm, rides along the southeast coast of the U.S., and then rides out to 40 and 70, and continues on its way, actually goes into Maine on this run. So, again, I didn't look at the 12Z just to see if was it there? No, it wasn't. It's kind of there on the 12Z. You sort of see it, but it's all strung out. So it didn't really do much with it. It just has all this strung out moisture from the Caribbean into South Florida off the southeast coast. Suddenly the 18Z run decided to do something with it. And just for laughs, we can look at the European to see if the European did anything. And let's see. And my suspicion is it didn't. Let me go to the Atlantic view. Makes it a little easier to see what's going on down there. A couple of tropical waves. Now, the European doesn't have anything, so you know what the usual rule is. I mean, it seems to have worked before. Uh, until the models get into inside at least the day five time range, 5 to 7 days. It's kind of dicey, but uh, it looks like you have to wait till it gets inside the 5 day time frame to have any kind of real confidence. And right now, other than the GFS, the European is not cooperating. Let's put it that way. Oh, that's not the right word to use. The European's not there. So as long as the European's not doing it, and as long as the two models are not doing it together, that's what I'm trying to say. Um, you can't have real confidence over what one model is spinning up.
And meanwhile, this day, the 2nd of June, the last 2 years have been rather auspicious in terms of local weather here in the New York tri-state area. Last year, how many of you remember this? At least this is what I wrote my Facebook page. Here at the home base today, this is for Putnam Valley, we hit 95 degrees. This was 1 year ago at 2:25 p.m. I added tomorrow we'll be lucky to get to 70. Pete Bergman, our mutual friend who lives out in the eastern Long Island, Patchogue, said it only got to 79 in Patchogue. And another friend of mine, Francine Jackson, said at the same time that I had 95, it only got to 52 in Rhode Island. So
Ooh.
it must have been some kind of a backdoor front in the vicinity, but I was, I guess, on the wrong side, which is why I was in the hot air and got 95. But obviously, that front must have been coming through,
No,
later on.
no one can ever accuse you of being hot air.
Yeah. And then the year before that, on June 2nd, 2022, here at the home base in Putnam Valley, we had 1.02 inches of rainfall between 3:30 and 4 p.m. and then 0.77 inches fell between 3:30 and 3:44 p.m. That translated into 3.3 inches of rain per hour, and it added new meaning to the word torrential. So 2 years ago, the big weather story was rain, and last year it was heat, but this year, nice and quiet.
I know we had. I remember last year in June, um, in early to mid June. There were a couple of mornings where temperatures got down into the low 40s here. So of course by the end of the day it was up in the upper 70s. But the thing is, it was still getting. This pattern is going to be interesting to see the next couple of weeks, just how cool some places could wind up being. But before we get to Briller Jeopardy tonight, I want to show everybody. This is my favorite. No, that's not it. This is my favorite rose bush that I have. Oh, what is this doing? No. Okay, there it is. Um, Hold on just a second, Joe. I'm sorry. I just had to click the right button. Okay, so there's my favorite rose, and it's already had a bunch of blooms, and it's now, put out some more. So I just love the color of this rose. It's like the sort of a peachy color. And and I mean, that's almost perfection in my view. And by the way, the fragrance is amazing. So there you are, the two blooms, the two most recent blooms from my fabulous rose bush.
It's
I have
it's
to,
it's it's too bad we don't have smell-o-vision.
no, but I'm a fan of Miracle Grow, so if my garden gets fed Miracle Grow um, uh, once a week, so I uh, I think it works great. I don't know if you use it.
Now, I mean, if there's anybody who uses stuff like that, it's Renata. With me, I have a brown thumb.
Do you kill plants?
I am not good with plants, and 1 year I got her very upset. I thought there was a weed growing, a huge weed that was growing right underneath our mailbox at the end of the driveway. So I thought I'd do a good thing. I went back out and cut it down,
All
chopped it
right.
up.
And how rare was it?
It was her yucca plant.
Uh, Before or after the blast?
after after I'll never I'll never ever do that again.
I would imagine you wouldn't. Okay, um, that would not be wise. That
Yes,
would
well,
not. Well, I'm really careful, I will side with you because sometimes it's very hard to tell. I have phlox growing in my yard that I planted, and there's stems of it that are popping up in other places, and it kind of looks like a weed. It doesn't really, it's just kind of shoots straight up to about 2 feet high or a little bit more, and then it throws out some flowers. So I'm like very carefully matching weeds up, leaves up to see, am I looking at, a new plant? Because if it's a new plant, I can dig it up and plant it someplace else. But sometimes it's hard to tell.
And William Huber mentioning on the chat board, this was specifically to you, Joe, talking about, he says, Joe C., back in October in 1991, there was a storm in October of 1991 off the East Coast, just as strong as Sandy, did a lot of coastal damage. I think they made a movie out of that, didn't they?
Uh, I don't
October of
know.
1991 it was a perfect storm, wasn't it?
Yes. Wasn't that Hurricane Grace that was in there, or Gracie?
Grace.
Grace?
Yes.
So anyway, I'm just, I know there's probably Miracle Grow ads are coming up even as we speak. So anyway,
That, by the way, reminds me of a poem that made up by Red Skelton, the late great Red Skelton, called "The Prison Cell." Have you ever heard that?
no.
This is again from Red Skelton. In a prison cell, a dreary place, sat a prisoner who committed a sin. The warden said, "I'm giving you 1 hour with grace." He said, "Okay, pal, send her in."
God, you're so bad. Um,
That
uh,
was used. That was used in his Guzzler's Gin. How many of you are Red Skelton fans and remember the Guzzler's Gin routine that Red Skelton used to do? And that was part of the Red.
but
That
you
was,
know what? In the world we live in, Joe, a lot of those, they wouldn't be able to do those things today. Because there'd be somebody that would get offended by it.
I know that's unfortunate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jerry,
Um,
Jerry Seinfeld has been hubbubbing about that.
yeah.
That comedy is going down the
Well,
drain.
they've killed comedy. We're
Yeah.
not able, that's not a good thing that we're not able to laugh at ourselves, but that's a conversation for another place and another time.
Yes.
It's now time to play Briller Jeopardy, and I know the folks on the chat board are going to do well with this one. It's since it's hurricane season, it we go to the list of retired A names. Retired A names, Joe Rayo.
Okay.
Um, we'll see what the chat board folks come up with. Folks, start posting up your thoughts here. Well, Rich Rothmansky, Mike Waterhouse with Andrew, that is correct. Christinapedia and Michael Azara with Agnes, that is correct. Um, no executive producer Ruben Fairchild. Adam is not correct. Um, so you guys are going Andrew Agnes, Andrew Agnes. We got those, but there's five other ones. Can you help them, Joe Rayo?
No, I can't.
Oh, Michael Lazara, very good. Audrey, um, Audrey is on the list. Maggie P, a variation of Alice, as Rich Rothmansky has now put up. Alicia, Alicia, and Alicia, by the way, was in Texas and Houston in 1983. Agnes in 1972. Audrey in 1957. Andrew in 1992. Um, Allen, yes, Allen, Craig Carlberg, but it was spelled Allen, and that was in 1980.
I remember that.
Yes, that was the first Category 5 hurricane since Camille.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, so there's that. So we've got four, so you're left with three. Um, let's see.
We had
So
Agnes,
Agnes, Allen,
Andrew.
Andrew, and Audrey. So there's three left. Yes, Rich Rothmansky. Anita in 1977 was a Cat 5 that went into the northeast coast of Mexico, just south of Brownsville. Um, and so there's that. So now we're down to two. Down to two. One of these was, I don't think one, I think one of these was not a hurricane. It was a tropical storm that was retired.
And
Heaven,
must
heaven
have been,
knows, Mister.
it must have then brought not so much wind, but lots of rain, right?
Yes. There was a movie called Heaven Knows Mr. Blank. That's no, it's not Alfred. Yes, Michael Azera. Allison. Allison in 2001. I believe that was in Texas, by the way. So there's, let's see, Agnes, Alicia, Alan, Allison, Andrew, Anita, and Audrey. We got them all.
Hmm.
We got them all. Allison was said, yes. So we got them all. And the movie was Heaven Knows Mr. Allison with Robert Mitchum and one of my favorite actresses, the beautiful and classy Deborah Carr.
Do we have any others?
No,
No other,
great.
no other
No other
retired.
view. Nope, that's it. Those are the A storms.
Oh, okay.
We got them all. So, so let's just remind everybody, in case you joined in late, to mark down Tuesday on your calendar because we are going to have as our guest John Molick. He's higher up in the New York National Guard. He's an intelligence officer. He's responsible for gathering weather information and passing it along to the higher ups. He's got a podcast called Headlines in History and has knowledge about weather and its impact on wars and history and foreign affairs and all the rest of it. So that's Tuesday night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the description of this podcast. Use the coupon code. What's the coupon code, Joe? Can you tell us?
Is it spring 2024?
It is spring 2024. It is. And if you use the coupon code to purchase this or anything else from the Tempest website, you get
You'll get 10% off.
okay.
And we
So
want to thank those who posted likes tonight. Again, we know that we're in a slack period now in terms of active weather, but we still managed to get 52 people to hit the like button. So thank you
no,
very
I
much.
have 61.
Oh, well, I'm running behind then.
You are. All right, folks. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7:35. Night night.
Nighty night.